Hello.
Hello, it's really nice to meet you. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks. Been fine too, and it's really great that you give us your time in order to talk about a big subject, escaping the clock, which is a really great subject in today's time, more and more. It was already relevant in the past, and it's keeping relevant in each generation. So I'm really happy to have this great discussion. And so I will just let you, if you want to introduce yourself to the people who might not know you here in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is Daniel Rodgers. I was born in the United States. I was someone who's been getting a little bit more acclaim, I guess, lately because I ended up writing a book that's done quite well. It's called Escape the Clock. It's really a program guide to help people take all of the financial strategies that I learned in my 20-year journey towards being able to reclaim my time and not have to retire at some preset retirement age set by the government, and be able to enjoy time with family and do the things I wanted to do. And I'm a professional program manager by trade, so I was hired to go do this type of thing for the biggest corporations in the world. And I really learned the craft in a way that I could apply it well to myself, and I teach it both through finance topics, but really for any kind of life topic. And so now the book has won a couple of awards, and it's been a bestseller, and it's something I'm just using my purpose in my early retirement, trying to teach and get these topics out, because the truth is nowadays than ever live in a world that is strained financially, psychologically, to our relationship with work, with everything. There's uncertainty. So I'm just trying to keep where I can.
Yeah, that's really great. So I understood last time you said that you already early retired, because of all the process you put in place in order to save well, in order to regain your time. Because in our society, people pay us because of our time. If we have a way to value more our time, less time, and get rewarded if we kind of big win in our society. So just to start from the beginning, what made you go into this process of escaping, the clock? And what do you mean by clock?
Yeah,
First of all,
yeah, it's a great question. If you start back at the beginning, imagine you're 18 years old again, and everyone's journey usually starts with taking on debt. And I know that's not the way a lot of people think about it, but the first thing on our financial journey is accumulating debt because we don't have income yet. We're not able to go in and have like the power to go in and do savings and have that kind of financial freedom, because first we have to invest in ourselves. And we usually do this at university, so that hopefully we can build the skills that we need to go into a workforce in order to have the option to build up enough wealth that we can kind of live our lives later comfortably. But that's not how a lot of people are prepared. When you're 18, you're not really told, hey, guess what? You're going to go through a lot of uncomfortable stuff. You're going to have, you might have already used a credit card or maybe not, but you're going to have to take school loans, or you're going to, not get paid well if you're going right into a job, and you're going to really struggle to make ends meet. Well, that is really becoming an exasperated problem because, I think in the United States we're at like $30 trillion of debt now. The average amount of debt per household is over $100,000. Debt is just going higher and higher and higher. Credit cards are over 30%. It's becoming next to impossible to get out of those situations, but you can't escape it. You start there. And what's really happening is you're being part of a clock. The clock analogy is really this idea that your time is the most valuable thing that you have. It's finite. The amount of time, we don't know how much time we have in our lives, but it is finite. Making it count matters. And if you're spending your life following someone else's agenda, just struggling the whole time, that's not exactly always a fulfilling life. And so I got a lot of research around retirees. Now, these are people in their 60s and 70s, and they had some really fascinating regrets, right? You could argue they escaped the clock, right? They were usually either forced into retirement or they went into a retirement. But I actually start the book with this research because a lot of retirees feel like they either save too much, save too little, but most likely waited too long. And the sense that you wait too long, you let too much of the clock tick by, that's a regret that you actually can have the option to not have. You don't have to have that regret. And so for me, I had a plan when I was amassed with all this school debt and I had to get myself organized. I was overwhelmed by I had $100,000 of school loans I had to pay. It was overwhelming. I was the first to go to college. There was no plan for that. I borrowed wherever they let me borrow. I was working. And I tried to get organized. I tried to educate myself. And throughout 20 years, even going through all those life events that you go through, buying homes, having kids, doing those things, I was able to get really good at understanding how to make my money work for me, how to make my plan work. And eventually I had the option to not work. And there was a conversation I had with a coworker that really just put the nail for me. We were both working in the tech industry. It was very stressful. There's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of struggle in this industry. And we were both managers and just working, picking up, absorbing all those layoffs. We would pick up a lot of that load personally. He hadn't taken any time off, probably in like almost a year. And he was just really burned out. And he told me he just couldn't go into work. He had actually gotten to the point where he just couldn't get himself to come into work. He just hit a wall and he sat at home.
Because of all the stress.
It was just the constant stress. It was the constant feeling trapped by what was happening, the lack of control. So,
Yeah.
work can be money is a big stress. Work is a massive stress, right? And a lot of times we tackle our identity into work. And he told me the story about how when he, that day at home, he didn't really feel like he was recovering. He just sat there on the couch and stared at the clock on the wall, watching it tick by, just lost about what to do at that time. He's like, I'm just watching the time tick by. I don't know how to reclaim it. I don't know what to do. And I thought it was a very powerful story he told me because he was looking for an escape. He didn't have one. He didn't have a plan. He didn't really know where he was financially. He didn't know how much longer he would have to work. He was just kind of on autopilot. So a lot of what I captured in there is like, if you have income and discipline, you can get there. It's just a matter about how far away are you, but you can figure that out pretty quickly using the tools and stuff I gave you.
But if I understood well, you had when you started to go to college about like 100K debt. In the United States, is it really mandatory to have debt when you go to higher school, uh, college, and all of that? So, is there any way you can escape debt, or there's no way?
I, you know, to be honest, because the cost of tuition in the United States is always rising. There are really no programs. There's scholarships and things that people can get, but it can be very difficult to get that kind of financial aid. The government can provide some financial aid, but it's a loan. And so you're taking debt either from the government, you're taking that debt from the bank. It's one of those options. And you might find that you as a young person can't even borrow the money. You have to get someone to sign that money for you, like maybe a parent. So, there's a collateral that has to be put up for that. So it's very hard to avoid. It's not impossible. Some people are fortunate, right? They can get full scholarships, or they can go to a trade school and not be in school quite as long. Maybe they don't amass as much. But, if you think about it, a degree is a bet. There's no sure things. The United States is extremely expensive, but it's become this like necessity. If you want to have any significant earning power, you have to get a degree. Yet it's so expensive to get one, and it's no longer a sure thing. If you think about the cost of a bachelor's degree, like let's just use a 4-year degree, you could spend, tens of thousands, 50,000, even $100,000 to get a bachelor's degree. Well, and the fields are changing. It used to be tech could be a good one you could do. That was more of a sure thing. That's not true anymore. With AI, a lot of reduction there. It's maybe not as sure of a bet to go into a tech field. Well, a lot of people then think about a master's degree. Well, that's more school, that's more debt, and there's no sure ROI on the return you would get from that extra time in school, because that time in school is time away from earning. So there's this really difficult like calculus that happens. And when you're young, there's not a lot of education about how do you make these decisions. What's the right field? What's the right thing to do? How much debt is okay? How do I pay off this debt? These are the challenges. I wanted to make sure I gave people tools and education to help them feel more prepared, because it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. So be- because from far away here, we listen a lot about the credit card and all of that.
Yeah.
So do some people use the credit card score to pay some school debt? Really, wow. Looks like there is not so much control around that, and it's like a really debt economy, kind of into debt economy, kind of a trap that's made there to make it eat himself, grow himself. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And by the time you're 22, you're already trapped by the clock. That's the truth.
Mm,
By the time 22, you don't realize you're doing it, but you're trapping yourself. No, I'm not trying to be a fatalist, just because you had to go and you're forced to build that debt because the system is designed for you to take that debt doesn't mean you can't escape it. You actually
mm,
can. The problem is people aren't taught how. And so that's what I wanted to make sure. Like my son's 18, he's about to go to college. I want to make sure he understood, okay, look, you can actually shop around when it comes down to borrowing. You have options when it comes to lending. There's different types of loans. Your credit card should only be used if you know you're going to have the money to pay it off. And a lot of people go, well, I don't have that luxury, right? My costs are higher than what I have to spend. I have to use that credit card. And that might be true, but just keep in mind that, that cost compounds. And as it compounds, it just entrenches you more and more and more. And the only things we really have control over is our spending and how we make moves in life to try to get ahead when it comes to income. And so knowing that maybe you can control your spending a little better, that might be your best option. And sometimes there's programs and eligibilities that I cover as well to help people too, things that nonprofits in particular in the United States that are designed to help people, because the problem is so large.
mm. Yeah. The problem is really large, and here in the EU we have a little bit more control over to who you want to borrow your money, and in France it's kind of hard, if
Mm.
you to borrow some money, but some people manage sometimes to get much high debts in a way they can't pay it off, and the country like that can forgive them most of the time, and they just recycle again. So yeah, after we say that, I think I'm really curious, to know about how you got organized. You know, so you had your 100K debt, and you just realized that you need to give that money back, and you need to have a good job. And how did you get organized as your young self? What did you do? What were the steps that you took to tackle it?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could say I had like a great plan that just went perfectly, but like many, I was learning and stumbling my way through it. But for me, I've always been a bit of an organized person, so I had to work. I made sure I got jobs to keep some of that, to pay off some of the higher expensive debt. So you can choose what debt you're paying a lot of the times, right? A school loan in the United States is a lower interest debt usually. So, and it's usually considered quote unquote good debt. And so, you don't feel, and you don't even have to pay it while you're in school. It doesn't activate until later. But if you're taking credit card debt, you need to be paying that. That will just pile and pile up. And so I knew I needed to make sure I had a plan to pay off any credit card debt that I would build up. So I had a job. I actually would work at a rental video store. Then I was working at a heating ventilation company. I was just getting any job I could to handle that because I knew that I had to be organized there. But really, what I was doing is I was ensuring I was capturing goals for my future. And I had no idea at the time how to organize a good program around it. I teach that stuff in the book. But back then, it was like I'd have a spreadsheet. I made sure I was paying attention to how much I was spending annually every year. And it's easy when you're starting out, right? Because you're not spending as much. But I knew, okay, I have this much on food, and I have this much on my housing, I have this much for transportation. And I could see how I was doing there and, save money where I could. Well, that spreadsheet kept growing and growing and growing. And eventually it became a really amazing tool for me, a tool that I actually generalize and I just give away for free now because I know a lot of people just need a tool. When you go to a financial advisor, really a lot of you're paying them for their knowledge, but you're also paying them for the tool they have. And a lot of times that's just a spreadsheet. If they just have a nice spreadsheet. You have to still provide the data. You still have to employ the strategies. So I put that up on the website, escapetheclock.com/planner, which is a free tool. Anyone can use it. You don't have to look at the book or listen to me on any of this. But just having that can help you because once you start knowing your numbers, where am I today? How much did I spend last year? How much do I think I might spend next year? And what are my goals for the future? Now you know where you stand and you can start to think about how far am I off and you can measure progress. Because if you're not doing that, it's really hard to know what's working. And that's what I was doing. I'm like, okay, I'm getting ahead with this or I'm not. I'm falling behind. And over time, I saw the debt. I was able to eliminate the school loans. It took a few years. And then I was making good financial decisions about avoiding certain new loans to take, knowing what was a good decision when it came to a work decision, like should I relocate or not relocate? What's the cost of living there look like here? Would it help me or would it put me back? Knowing having data for that stuff, it takes a lot of the stress away from some of these decisions. And that actually got really organized over time because of that.
So just as I understood you, spreadsheet, the special spreadsheet that now today you just did the people of your website. And this spreadsheet helps you to come up with a good strategy, focus on your spending, so you lower them, the best full time. And what I noticed when I talk about money budgeting people, the first problem of people is like they don't have the money because they don't have the strength, every month to sit on the table and check who plus, less, plus. So how did you manage?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the crux of it, right? Like, you people are really good at spending the money they have. So I mean, I'm the same. Like I'd have a paycheck come in, I would spend all of it, it was gone, and then live paycheck to paycheck. That you don't get ahead doing, right? You're just trying to get ahead above water. So what you're trying to do is figure out, okay, just what I can afford. It's trying to think about what I do, I can afford the life I want. And there are things you can do to spending. That's one. But ultimately, it comes down to ensuring that you're not inflating your lifestyle. Because naturally, our lifestyles inflate, right? Like they're going to get bigger and bigger. If we get married, have children, move, promotion, these inflate our lifestyle. If we can kind of maintain and not let it inflate too much, keep the cost of living somewhat under control, now, all of a sudden, every single year, the delta of how much excess we have is growing. As that's happening, you have more opportunity to save money, but more importantly, invest money. Because once you start investing, now what you're doing is you're creating, I call them snowballs in my podcast, but basically something that can have a real rate of return. What you want is a real rate of return because you need to beat inflation. When you're beating inflation, you're truly getting ahead. And if you do this automatically, that's the real key. If you have automatic contributions to retirement accounts, investments, even savings accounts, whatever is left in your paycheck, you'll spend. We're good at that. Spend what's left. But this is already happening. It doesn't matter where you live. You have automatic balls coming from your paycheck into certain banks. If you allow extra automatic withdrawals into the other things that you know is important, then you will adapt the size of your life for what's left, and you'll find you are actually getting ahead.
Yeah. So the key is like make it like be automatic.
Mhm.
And now we had a lot of tools. Myself, I'm using trading 212,
Mhm.
and they just kind of automatic take money in my account to put in my pie charts in order to get some dividends. So sometimes we just get free, but sometimes it's just hard, to do it manually. So it kind of helped to have an automatic way to do it, and it's really delayed, the fact that you need to sit and checking. But I think when you start, to be in your financial journey, in your financial freedom, it's always great to get, some way to do it seriously, to really endure the pain to do something manually and seriously, to really get in there. Um, you mentioned it. You had really high stressful jobs. You worked in big companies. You really got big position. And how was it working for someone that managed your time while you were greeting, to pay back everything and to escape the clock?
Yeah, we put a lot into our jobs. I was no, exception for that. I wanted to do the best I could. I thought I was making smart moves, right? I was growing up in a state in the Midwest called Ohio. The cap of what I could make financially wasn't actually very high there, but I would move jobs whenever I find I was getting stagnated. I would hit some salary cap, so I'd have to find, okay, I have to move a different role, different company, different group, and that would help. But then eventually that stopped, and so I found I was switching jobs every 2 years in order to stay getting ahead. And I knew I wasn't getting ahead. I was tracking everything. Eventually, I realized we had to move if we wanted to have any option to really get ahead on the timeline that I wanted. And so we ended up moving to Washington State, which is on the other side of the country. And that was a great decision. I can show through data how much that sped up my earning power over my lifetime. I just could not have done that if I had stayed where I was. Now that I'm in an early retirement situation, as my kids are now all starting to move out, we might actually move back to a lower cost area because that will stretch what I'm able to do. But, I'm working at these jobs and, work demands as much as you're willing to give it. It just does. You're working for someone else's agenda, to be a good contributor, you're supposed to figure out how you can best contribute to that agenda. And that can be a really, giving thing on your part. You can give it all to the point where you're putting it over your family, you're putting it over your health, you're putting it over your goals. And I knew that I couldn't sacrifice my goals, financial goals. That was my light, I think, with the tunnel. I felt that I could put it up for a while. I could do it for a while, but I knew I couldn't do it forever. And so I was able to give my all and make big moves and try to get ahead. And I think it paid off. But there's golden handcuffs in a lot of these companies. You try to leave, oh, all of a sudden they want to pay you more money. Why didn't
Yeah,
why weren't you going to pay me money when I was doing a great job just a minute ago? Now you want to pay me more money? They try to tighten these handcuffs on you, right? They don't want you to make those moves. It's a pain for them to replace you or whatever, but they can't. Nobody is like such an important cog at a company that will fall apart. Every single person is replaceable. And I think when you realize that, you know, your psychology with work is really just a means to the end. And if you have an end, which is your own financial freedom, you might feel really empowered to make some big moves at work and not give it so much that you regret that time that you spent there. And that was my goal. And I think I did a pretty good job with that, but I didn't do perfect. Like I sometimes my health took a hit and I was struggling with that. There were like things I missed with my kids that I wish I had seen, that I had to put a work deadline ahead of. We're not perfect, but now I can give my all to my health and give my all to my kids. And that feels really good.
yes, I think if really you are really got a well-earned place today, because what I've seen in the past when I was in the workforce too, I've seen a lot of people that want to quit, but they don't know how to survive outside of this schema, you know, because it's really much more easy, to send a resume and getting paid for something that you know how to do every day, because I need to do this, that to get that. So it's kind of different when you are an entrepreneur. You are just doing everything by yourself, and then you don't have a boss to tell you you need to do that to get that. So you're just experiencing everything. So I've seen a lot of people, some of my peers, like 50 years old, older, and all of that, that were really scared, to quit the company. Even they were getting sick, they were getting ill about that same job, about the internal fight, as we call it, internal affairs, And I have experienced something in my career that made me organize without wanting it, because me, I just grew up in Congo, and my dream was to come in a big country to have a lot of chance to experience what is it corporate life, because in Congo we still don't have this kind of corporate life, and it's really difficult to get in there, and it's kind of not the same experience, because I really wanted to experience what I see in the movies, to know how it works inside, how things work. I was kind of really curious, so I just came in, I just studied here, and I did like all my off here, and then I got my first job. And on the first job, I noticed people were really, uh, how to say it in English, they were really brutal, really fierce competition. A fierce competition, people were kind of animal, really animal, no mercy at all, really beasts. And I've seen a lot of them like having some disease because of the stress of the work, because of the fierce competition. And I ask myself, do I gonna live it for 35 years? Do I'm gonna handle this workspace? So I just did a little like you. So I just changed job every 2 years, because it became like more and more toxic. So I couldn't brace in this kind of environment. I tried my best, but the toxicness was really so much. And when I just started in a new company later on, I just experienced something that changed my view in finance. Because in the past, when I get my paycheck, I just finish all my paycheck because I want to enjoy. I want to go to the restaurant, and in the time they were paying me so much good money for France, it was around like 5,000 euro after tax for a young guy who's less than 30 years old and don't have kids. It's kind of good thing, Yeah. So I kind of enjoyed it a little, and one day I came to the office in the morning, and I just saw like people were a little agitated, a little sad, a little something was happening. So I just asked, "What's happened, guys?" And they said that our colleague on the way, uh, that he just took his bike to come to the office from his house to the office, and he was hit by a car. He was hit by a car, and he just lose the ability to walk until today. You know what the company did? The company gave him just the minimum of what the law gave, 2 years severance, and he was in a wheelchair. And after the 2 years severance, they just gave him a little money to shut it up. But the man was like 35 years old, and he worked for so long time for the company. So I was like, how he would manage his life? He has kids. He didn't plan this, and people in a minute he was outside, everyone forgot about him, and that's the magic of the companies, you know and it's at that moment, without knowing, I just started to focus well on my financial being, on how to get the most money possible in order to prepare my future and for my future kids, how to get advantage of my position to get the most resource possible, you know, and that's really scared me. In all my jobs, I was really scared of that. So I worked like hell to get higher in the position So I became manager in consulting, and I took really great money, but it wasn't enough because you have the money, and when you want to leave, they just add you more money. Or you can stay, take it is. But I didn't want to look like them because my life was not a company. And you know it much more better than me. But when you work in an environment where there's a lot of money, there are a lot of clash between people. So people want to beat each other to stay the most long possible. And I saw harmful behaviors. So what I've really witnessed is no matter how much money today people can give me, I will always choose my mental health first. My mental health, because if you're sick, you are nothing, you can't work, you can't save, you can do nothing, and you are not an asset anymore. So what's your thought about that?
I mean, I kudos to you. I think, you've figured that out through your journey. I think a lot of people have great intentions when they go to work, right? They're learning skills, they're about to give their all and show their value, and it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating when you're not recognized for your contribution. It can be frustrating when you're not given opportunities that you know you can do. It can be frustrating when you're not getting paid fairly, when to someone else. And so a lot of this stuff is made taboo on purpose. It's taboo to talk about how much money you make. Well, who's that benefiting? Not being able to talk about how much money you're making. It's benefiting these companies, right? It's not benefiting you. Like, you might be getting paid unfairly, but you're not going to know because you're being told it's not okay to talk about it. So, I think it's good that you got to the realization. I'm a little sad to hear that it had to go through like tragedy and things like that to kind of shock it. I'm hoping people don't have to go through it the hard way to realize that our relationship with work is not like it's supposed to be, like the way it was used to be. In the United States, there used to be this idea you would give your whole life to one company. This is like my grandparents' age. You would work, 50 plus years, and you get this thing called a pension, and then that company is taking care of you for the rest of your life for your loyalty. That does not exist anymore. That idea is gone.
Yeah,
You know, so
yeah,
we have to understand that's gone. There's no that we keep giving loyalty when it's not rewarded and recognized. It's just you're kind of being taken advantage of, right? And I mean, no one's stupid for this. This is us because in a way we all want to do the best we can for ourselves, for our families, for our companies. That's great. That's good stuff. But look, your job is not your family. I always get a little irritated when people say that we're a family here. No, you're not. You're gonna take care of your family no matter what. But you're gonna lay this me off if you have to. So that's different. You're not a family. The other thing is we're moving into a culture of uncertainty when it comes to work. And you're seeing this with movements right now. There's like a retire early movement that's really taken off in popularity. This is because of the relationship with work has changed. People they're challenging it more. And if you look at Gen Z, the new generation coming into the workforce, they are struggling because they're not allowing themselves to be taken advantage of at work. They are the most empathetic generation yet. They're also the most technologically advanced generation yet. And they're coming in, and work is trying to do the same old stuff to them. And they're like, no, you can't treat me like that. You can't talk to me like that. And they're either quitting or getting fired. And it sucks because they're young. They need to build their future, but they're not willing to put up with it. Now, I'm not saying we're bad because we're older and we put up with it more. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the realization has shifted to a populace. Most people are getting it. And look, like I worked as an individual contributor, and then I was working as a very senior manager. So I've seen kind of both sides. I've been in both types of rooms, hearing conversations. And I can tell you, like, if you look in a culture of layoffs, like why people are let go, it is not because of performance. It can be, but a lot of the time it is not because of performance. You are not being let go because you're doing a bad job. You might be being let go because you're too expensive, because you stayed at the company for too long. They know they can get someone cheaper to do your job because you just happen to stay there too long. So complacency is bad. Never try to go with complacency. The other is just because it could be a mismanaged company. It could be a toxic workplace or a mismanaged company. They could have overhired because somebody wanted to look good and say, "Look, I grew the company 20%." Well, that did not equal results. So now they have to fire 20 plus more percent. So keep that in mind. That's not you. That's the company making a bad decision, and then you're taking the fall for it. So, I
Yeah,
think resilience is key, and having something, a goal in mind that's bigger than your job is really critical here. And that's why financial freedom is great, because it's not about early retirement. It's about choice. It's about control. It's about knowing you don't have to work. You covered it. You have a contingency in place.
yeah. I think what you said resonates a lot on me because here in France too, a lot of people tend to take company as their identity, and I was part of these people too when I started to work. If I worked for a big company or S&P 500 company, I was proud because my proud was based on the reputation of this company. And one day, this was the second time I experienced something in my career who made me shift my mind without wanting to shift my mind. I was working for a big consulting company, worldwide company, more than 100,000 people worldwide. And we were the leaders in Europe. And we bought an American company. So we were operating in America too. So it was really vast and I was quite comfortable. And the first day, when I was hired there, my boss, the partner, he worked there for like 7 years already. He said to me, Jean Paul, we will never fall. We are too big to fall. And when he said we are too big to fall, in my mind, I don't know what's happened, but I just said to myself, we will see. I don't think it's impossible that a big giant can fall. You know what happened? I was assigned in the consulting project inside the company, and my job was to check how many money we received every month. So I was in the cash management department because they wanted more people to work on that to avoid to pay some fees and to know exactly how they would to play money. So what I noticed that we didn't know clearly how much money we received. And they were monitoring it in a sheet tool that was working not well. And the same data kind of come back every month and nobody know how to fix it. Turns out we have a big hole of 5 billion inside the company. 5 billion. And even today, it keep growing because nobody knew, but people were hiding all of that. So I just talked to the CFO and I showed the data and all of that, and he trusted me. We went to see the CEO, and the CEO said to us, "I don't care about what you do, just do your job. It's not your business." And later on, the CEO was fired from the company, but he was fired with like a 12 million. So he have nothing to worry about. But I just knew my colleague behind. I had a colleague who had a big disease, and that job was all her life. And some other people, they were divorced, they were 50 years old, and they just have this job, to survive. So they didn't grow up the network. They didn't save well because they were too much comfortable in there. So this is how life can change finally.
Yeah,
And
it's so that's power. It's a powerful story because it's so true. And I know people who end up in a forced retirement situation before they wanted to retire, and it feels like their life ended. Like you give your whole life to some company, that's your purpose, and then it's gone, and it's gone fast. That's so jarring. Now you wake up, and it's like, oh, who am I? What am I doing? You don't want to be in that situation, right? Because I'm not saying your life's over. You can always rebound, but it's a painful way to come back, right? If your intention though is to think, okay, I'm doing a lot. I care about this company. I want it to be successful, but I'm keeping my eyes open. I realize it might not be here forever. I will not be here forever. My purpose is grander than this thing. you do the financial stuff. And look, anyone can do the financial stuff. And I can cover a lot more of what you should be thinking about and doing there. But I think the real thing I wanted to touch on is this idea of purpose. And purpose is something more than a job. Purpose is your legacy. It's what you want to people to know you as, or you want, or you feel good doing. And, life does not stop when you're retired. It doesn't stop when you're laid off. It can start. It can start in a bigger way. I find as I was really good at my job. I like really good at it. And I know it sounds like I'm just bragging, but the truth is I put everything into being good at it. And I loved it. I got energized by doing it. But now that it's over, I'm enjoying my life more because I find a purpose that is my own, wholly my own. And I'm helping people and I'm seeing the impact that's having, a direct impact. And it will stop the day I choose for it to stop. It's not because someone's going to force it, right? So that what I'm getting at is like knowing that you can have a grand purpose. And even if you don't know what it is, that's fine. You can build it. You don't even have to find it, you can build it. Take care of the financial side, so that's not a stress and a worry, and then work on the skills you intrinsically already have and employ those to give back or to create something. It can even be a financial thing. You could be building a company if you wanted to. Early retirement isn't like really like standard retirement because people don't really stop working. You're just kind of working in a different way because, usually you're younger and you still have energy and aspirations and you have some health left. So, some people call it semi-retirement or whatever. But I guess the point is like, you find understanding you have so much more to give than what's measured by your job, I think is where it starts because everyone has so much value.
No. When you just start to know, okay, it's time for me to exit because I reached my goal. How was it in your mind?
I didn't leave right away. I hit my, okay, so first I had my savings goal. And when I hit that, that actually was like, okay, wow, what a milestone. I have all this savings and I can live on this for over a decade. I can just be withdrawing from it and be fine. But I had a passive income goal as well because I think a lot of what gives people discomfort about not working is the absence of that paycheck. And if you have passive income, you're still getting paid. So I knew it was important to have some alternative income coming in and so I was working on building that. And when I hit that goal, I was done. I could have retired. Like I could have quit the next day and I knew I'd be fine for the rest of my years. But I still didn't quit. I just didn't do it because I'm like, oh well, it's not the right time. There was just another round of layoffs. I need to hire two new people. I need to make sure the company's going to be okay. I should make sure. And I was like, excuse. The truth is, I was scared. Like I was just scared to do it, right? And I was really burning out bad. And I had worked so hard for that goal, but I still wasn't taking the lead. And it was my 20th wedding anniversary. And my spouse and I, we went on a nice trip together and we're alone. And I was kind of like just telling her like, hey, I don't know, like I hit my goals. I know we've been working for this. It's exciting that we've accomplished this. But I know I'm going to go back to work when this vacation's over. And she looked at me and she's like, stop being an idiot. What are you doing? You deserve this. Why the company is going to be fine without you. It was fine before you. It's going to be fine after you. Your team's going to be fine. Go do it. And she pushed me. I'm happy she did because having someone supporting you is really, really key. And I think sometimes people don't have that all the time. Like there's some stigma with this idea that you're not going to work and that society or even a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, they might say, oh, what are you going to just like sit around all day watching TV? What are you doing? Like, there is a stigma with it. But the truth is, if you have like, no, I'm going to stop working because we're okay. Here's how we're okay. I brought you along on the plan. And I have all these great goals. I'm going to really start living. Now it's like, it's less of I'm not running away from work. I'm completing work and starting something bigger and better. It's more of like, intentional transition. and my spouse knew that about me. And I gave my notice the day I got back from that vacation because I knew if I put it off, I'd get pulled back into that grind. And that
Yeah.
was, it was kind I worried about that conversation with my manager, right? I was like, oh, what they can say. And I actually sat down and I wrote out all the different things I thought they would say. And I created this. I'm a planner, so I plan everything. So I planned it out. I go in that conversation. It People are not as negative as we think they are. They just aren't.
Yeah.
Like he didn't say a half of the stuff he thought he was gonna do. Yes, he did try to throw more money at me. This is just what happens. They're like, oh, we'll cut your hours a bit. We'll throw more money at you. And the truth is, if that's your goal, if you're just burned out and you want less hours, make a move, do that. Maybe they'll help you with reducing your hours. But for me, that wasn't. It was retirement. So that stuff isn't what my goals were. I stuck to my guns there, and I said I'm going to give you time to do a transition. I gave them a month. He asked for 3 months. And I said 3 months. It's too much. I'll do six. Yeah, so I said 6 weeks, and then I held it there. And even that, I felt was too much. I probably should have just stuck with 4 weeks. But anyways, like I try to have the most positive transitions possible. And during that time, it was amazing. I had some of the best conversations of my life during those 6 weeks that I was transitioning at work because people knew I was going into a retirement situation. I wasn't going to a competitor or something like that, right? So they felt they could really open up to me about how they were feeling. I was able to spend the time to have one-on-one conversations with everybody. And during those conversations, I collected their information. So how can I stay in contact with you? Like, I don't want to be socially isolated. I want to maintain these relationships. And you can kind of tell the people who genuinely have a good relationship with you at that time, right? Like if they're interested in that, you're like, okay, this was an authentic relationship. And so not all of them will be, and that's okay. But I have fantastic friendships, and that I don't know if that would have persisted if I hadn't made the transition. And then that first day when I woke up and I have to go to work, it felt good. It didn't feel scary, not as scary as I think it could have felt otherwise.
Wow, that's really amazing. So finally, you kind of shocked your colleagues because they kind of realized, wow, he's escaping the cloak and we are staying there, to burn our brain on some shit that we don't even care about it.
And these are smart people too, right? Like when my last company I worked at was Google, and Google, hires a lot of the best, and I worked hard to get there, really hard to get there. And these people were getting paid a lot more than me. They had been there a long time. They're really smart people. And in those conversations, though, they opened up about their financial situation to me. And what was really interesting was how many of them were just on autopilot. Like they knew they should do a company match. They knew they should have a savings account. They knew things like that. They knew some basic stuff. And they were doing those things. But they didn't really a lot of them would pay these finance managers because they made them feel like they were getting ahead. But these financial managers, a lot of these companies, they'll take like 1 or maybe 2% of your net worth every year to do what? Like, what are they doing? Like, they can't get a better return than what anyone else can get. Nobody can guarantee a return. So, you have to give them all the data anyways. You have that data. You might as well like try to take control of your own plan because they're not going to last forever, but you're going to be there in your corner forever. So you should think about like even a financial advisor is going to retire or you're going to outgrow them. And so I was having really honest conversations with these really smart people. People would make a lot more money than me, but had no option for retirement because they allowed their lifestyle to inflate too much. They weren't making any moves. They weren't putting anything in their investments. They weren't doing some of these basic things that I had been doing, many, many, many years ago when I was getting organized.
Wow, that's really crazy. That's really crazy. But talking about the bigger picture, because I interviewed a guy who worked in the Silicon Valley. He just built all the systems that we know today, the AI things and all of that. And he gets layoff in the most dirty way. He, he told me, Jean Paul, the company was really great. We were like doing great numbers, and there were still some work for everyone. But they were kind of monitoring the layoff, uh, between colleagues, they were saying, no, we are fine, we have some work and all that. So December passed, December 2024. January passed, Happy New Year, get back to work, we are happy, we eat and all that. And 23 or something January 2025, they just gave him a letter, you are laid off. And the man, since now, is living through his savings because he don't have option. It's really crazy. He spent 15 years in the Silicon Valley. He worked for Google, he worked for Amazon, he worked for Tesla, all of that, for Facebook. And today, he don't know what to do. And he's telling me that AI is not a problem, but it's what people are doing to AI. Because we can create some system like in the past when we had computers, we were thinking computers will replace people, but they were not created to replace people. They were created to help people, you know. And in fact, it did reduce an amount of people, but the change that this technology that we are creating AI is doing, it's kind of something that we never seen in the world, and it's already happening. So what do you think about this? That is there again a window to create something outside of work now? You
Yeah,
know,
like I worked on AI programs for these big companies, and I'm really familiar with the evolution of AI and what it can be. And let's just be honest, like where are we, right? If we're going to talk about AI for a moment, AI is not going to replace anyone's job. It's just not. But what it is going to do is it's going to replace enough tasks that it's going to make your job more replaceable. And that nuance is kind of important. Everyone's job is replaceable, but with AI and the way it's being used, to your point, it will increase the risk to everyone's job. Because if you're doing a certain set of tasks, but those tasks are fully automatable, then all of a sudden you might be too expensive. That's the risk. It's not that it's going to do your job. And not yet. Like, in the future, we might get into, like full, you know, um, divergent and super intelligent AI, something like that. But right now, the type of AI we have are they're really just, it's really about automation. And so keeping that in mind, like instead of waiting for, trying to do a better job at those same tasks and hoping that that's rewarded, knowing that that's not how life always works, I think it's better to have a contingency, mitigate the risk. Okay. Because the AI is going to keep developing regardless if you're going to decide to use it or not. The best thing you can do is use it to try to evolve the tasks you're doing. If you start using AI in your job in a way that makes you yourself even more efficient and valuable, now you're making it actually harder for AI to do those same tasks at the same kind of output. So that could be an interesting application. But regardless, having a contingency in place is key. So instead of having some savings, 3 months of savings, and saying, okay, I can live off that, it's my emergency fund. I don't believe in that. I believe in having at least a 2 years of cost of living saved up. And I think that I'm probably the only person you'll hear say this, by the way. You listen to any other finance person, they will never say this. They think that's a waste of money. You're going to get more returns in the stock market. And they're right about that. But the reason I do it this way is because once you have a couple years of cost of living, you get a ton of security from that. You get a ton of peace of mind from that. If it's in a high yield savings account, you're actually getting, it's an investment. You're getting compound interest and it can generate passive income. It's the most passive income in the world is the interest you get from a savings account. Super liquid. It's automatically reinvested because it's compounding. Additionally, it becomes opportunity money, capital that you can use if a big investment thing comes up or whatever. But mostly in the case where let's say you were to lose your job or something, instead of dipping into your retirement account early on a penalty or taking a loan, you could live for potentially 1 or 2 years just on that savings account as you build up skills to adapt to whatever it is you need to do next. Even better is to hit full financial freedom, right? What I'm giving is an example of a contingency, which is enough capital saved that you can absorb the worst case scenario, that your health got impacted, your job got impacted. But best case is hit financial freedom and don't quit. That way, you're still making money. You can do whatever you want with it, but you know if you got fired, you could quit tomorrow, and it wouldn't matter because you know you can live the rest of your years comfortably. The reason I like that is because it changes the way the stress we feel about our lives. Knowing you don't need your job, it's just something you're doing because you have purpose out of it, then like fine. Let AI develop, let it impact me. It's okay. I'll be fine. That might actually empower you even to feel not just that stress is gone, you're comfortable, but it might actually give you the freedom to make moves that you might not normally want to move. Like you might say no to something you normally say yes to. And a lot of the time I see people get burned out, it's because they feel they have to say yes to everything because they're worried if they say no to something, they won't be seen as valuable. But the truth is, you can't do all those things. There's a cost to trying to spread yourself that thin. You're not doing them as well, and eventually you'll burn out. And getting out of burnout, it's such a difficult thing to do. It's a monumental effort to get out of it. You're never the same. So what's better is like feeling like it's okay to say no to things because you know you're going to be okay. So, anyways, that was a long way of saying like, yeah, build up your financial resiliency so that these things aren't as worrisome for you or stressful for you as they might be otherwise.
Yeah. So build up your financial resiliency. And to just talk about, the legacy that you're building now, uh, because you are a retiree and everyone in the world envy you because you retired early. So why did you decide, to write this book, and how do you work with people now? Who are the people you are helping now, and how it happens?
Yeah, I tripped into it. I was running my own financial, freedom program. I just wanted to be retired. I wasn't trying to make this my purpose. But when I was having those conversations with everyone, they were asking for a book. They said, please write a book. I want the book. And I wasn't really looking to write a book, but I'm actually glad I did it because it allowed me to package all of that research and knowledge and stuff into, got my thoughts put together in a way. And it became this thing I could hand my kids. I have two teenagers, one's about to go to college. I want them to know all this stuff. I'm trying to teach them it, but having a book's better because it has it all really laid out for them. And so throughout their lives, regardless of where they're going, they can kind of see, oh, okay, I'm about to buy a house. I'll go to that part of the book and I'll start to see what I need to do. Oh, I remember in the book, I need to start investing today. I'm going to go ahead and start thinking about how to not spend all my money so I have some option to start doing that. So the book became something I stumbled on, but I'm glad I did it. And now, because of the book, I joined a nonprofit and I teach these topics to high schools. So I go around my local state and I'm teaching and trying to, because there's just no, I'm not sure about in France, but in the United States, there's no education for finances ever at all. Like it's just not a mandatory part of the curriculum. So many people go into leave high school and have no idea how taxes work. Like that's crazy. They don't know that they pay taxes, how taxes work. They don't understand the impact to borrowing. They don't understand how to make a budget. They don't know what a 401k is. So I'm teaching those topics because I'm trying to help. And then I started a podcast because I don't want to have to sell a book to help people with this. So I said, okay, I'll just take all these ideas from the book, and every week I'll put out an episode of a podcast where I can talk about it. So there's an Escape the Clock podcast now that I've been doing for 9 weeks, and that's been a lot of fun because I didn't know how to podcast before I retired. I had no idea how to do any of this. I would not have been having this conversation with you, which has been so much fun. So when we retire, we can start to build skills. And that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to build some new skills, and that's where this came out of.
Oh, that's really impressive and really interesting, because on my private circle, I know a lot of people that just don't dare to move, that are doing like a small moves. I know it's better than nothing. That a lot of people are stuck, and even on Reddit, we have an anti-work, but a French version of the anti-work. How you will see a lot of stories there. That's crazy. And I understood that a part of why we have violence in work is because people realize they don't have another option, and they are frustrated to that, and they are upset, and it's a way of just a beating, seeing, crashing on other people's life, to maybe feel better, But what I understood from our conversation is it's important to build your financial resilience. It's important to think about tomorrow. It's important to not rely on just one source of income, like you did, to build some kind of side hustle that you developed throughout the years you are working on your full-time job, you know, in order when you retire to keep have some money pumping. And yeah, I think you are really a great example, and many people need to listen this message. And so I want to let you the end of the word of this podcast, because I saw we a little bit did over time. But Daniel, just to say something and share something to your French people that are listening here, to our European people. What do you want to tell them?
I think we live in a tough time right now. I think there's a lot of mistrust and there's a lot of uncertainty. But the truth is, we're in the same boat, right? We're doing the best what we can every day, and that knowing that others can be successful, we can learn from each other, right? I'm learning from people every day. I'm trying to share what I know. We don't have to feel trapped. And knowing that there are some basic things, and these aren't even all that complicated, some of these moves that have to be made, but knowing there's some basic things you can do to get yourself today on the path to having control back of your life and building the life that you want, then that can be not just healthy for yourself, but it can be inspiring for those around you. And so I hope that the understanding that just having a plan alone, that will set you apart. Just knowing what your goal is and how that you want to work towards it, that's enough, that you care about your financial future. You can, there's so many ways to do it. You don't have to use the planner I'm giving away. You don't have to even read this book. You could go and use a lot of the other things out there. Just know that knowing where, looking at your spending and starting to make sure you're building up some high yield savings and doing some level of automatic contribution to smart investing. There's a good way to do investing. I talked about this on my podcast because I worry sometimes about people thinking investing is a get rich quick scheme, which it's not. It's investing is something you can do deliberately. Time is your friend when it comes to investing, and you want to hedge. You don't want to put everything into one basket. You're spreading things around. Just knowing you can do things like that, I think you might find a little bit of the weight will come off of your shoulders, and you're feeling okay. At least today is still tough, but I'm on a path where it's not going to be so bad. You can start to buy back your time. And when you buy back your time, then you can start to use your time as a capital to invest that into new skills, into making money, if that's what you want to do, into some cause you care about, whatever it is. And I think you might find you're living your best life. And that's what I did. And I'm hoping others can, take note of that and do that for themselves, because I think that's how we heal the world. That's how everyone starts to come back together and, start to trust each other and love each other in a better way. And money does not divide us. It can just be that thing that we just dealt with. It's a math problem. And now we're just being the best people we can be with the time we have.
Yeah, that's perfect. Really, really great message. And I just to take it too for myself also, because I'm on this journey too. Yeah. So thank you so much, Daniel, for being here. Thank you so much for your time. It was a really great conversation, and we just to keep in touch. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Most people could.
Merci.